I'm a 22-year-old gal, and my boyfriend and I shared this house that had its fair share of quirks. The incident I'm about to spill the beans on went down in December 2022. Let me set the stage a bit for you. Our humble abode sat in a neighborhood that didn't exactly scream safety first, and there was always something bizarre brewing. Our house, smack in the middle of it all, faced this narrow alleyway that connected our backyard to the property next door. Now, the neighbors weren't exactly buddy-buddy types, as their place was front-facing and looking all fancy toward the main street. Our backyards were separated by this rusty chain-link fence with a gate. It was one of those emergency access-only deals, thanks to the house deed. You see, this alleyway was so tight that even my boyfriend's hulking pickup truck had to pull off some acrobatics just to squeeze through. And as if the universe itself wanted to keep us under wraps, our neighbor's parked car always had our house playing hide-and-seek from anyone trying to peep from the main street. Now, onto that chilly December night. It was just me at home, thanks to my boyfriend's surprise work call. The clock had just struck 10 p.m., and I figured, why not order some late-night grub from Applebee's? I know, late for takeout, right? But I had no clue my boyfriend would be out so darn long. Little did I know, I was in for the scare of a lifetime. I cozied up with my takeout, ready to catch up on some TV. And then it happened. A notification on my phone, courtesy of the motion sensor lighting camera in our backyard. Initially, I brushed it off, thinking maybe our neighbors were up to some late-night antics. But boy, was I in for a curveball. I glanced at the live feed and there he was, a man clutching what looked like a white plastic bag, crouched near our entrance gate. Another shady figure lurked on the opposite side of our yard, near a tree. Panic gripped me as I dialed my boyfriend and spilled the beans about the unwanted guests in our backyard. His voice urged me to play it cool, turn off the lights and hush our barking furballs. I scooped up our canine pals and sought refuge in the closet, waiting for my boyfriend's next call. Truth be told, I was too rattled to dial 911, so my boyfriend made the call on my behalf. And let's be real, I wasn't about to flip those lights off just in case someone out there was watching and figured out we weren't alone. As I waited in the closet, I kept a vigilant eye on the live camera feed, praying I wouldn't see those creeps again. At last, they disappeared from the screen. I replayed the footage, heart racing, only to notice something eerie. They'd entered our neighbor's driveway, slinked through the gate, and craftily as a fox, avoided setting off our camera as they approached our bedroom window. It was at this point that the motion-activated light flicked on, and the camera's robotic voice chimed, "Hi, you're now being recorded." Our bedroom window, the biggest one we had, was right at the back of the house, and it would have been a piece of cake for them to boost themselves up and check if it was open. But thank the stars above, we had a hefty wooden dresser blocking their way, making any attempt at breaking in impossible. My boyfriend rang me back to deliver the news. The police were en route and instructed me to stay frosty. After what felt like an eternity, I spotted the blue and red flashing lights of the police cruisers in our backyard. They looked bewildered, trying to pinpoint which house was ours. I dashed out to meet them, introduced myself, and gave them the lowdown on the whole situation. As I recounted the spine-chilling events, my boyfriend arrived back home. We dished out all the deets to the police and showed them the footage. Sadly, there wasn't much they could do, as the creeps had vanished from our backyard. Nevertheless, we insisted on having the incident officially documented. One of the officers mentioned that it seemed like these folks had their eyes on something in our yard. Our backyard was a quirky collection of stuff, a concrete mixer, a couple of bikes, a kiddie pool for our dogs, and even a bike track. If these miscreants had tried to swipe any of that, I might have just rolled my eyes and let it slide. But it was crystal clear that they knew our yard layout like the back of their hand, from the gate to the camera placements. For days after this hair-raising ordeal, the fear of being home alone, especially at night, gnawed at me. The police did a quick neighborhood sweep before departing, but we haven't received any further updates about the situation. As I went about my daily routine, the unsettling feeling that something was terribly amiss clung to me like a shadow. It wasn't long before that feeling manifested into something more sinister, something I couldn't ignore. One evening, as I prepared to retire for the night, the atmosphere in our home seemed to shift. The air grew heavy with an unspoken dread, and every creak of the house echoed like a sinister whisper. I tried to dismiss it as mere imagination, but then it happened, a faint, rhythmic tapping on the bedroom window. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood frozen, my eyes locked onto that cursed window. The tapping persisted, deliberate and unnerving, like the beat of a twisted lullaby. Slowly, I inched closer, my trembling hand reaching for my phone. I knew I had to call for help, but the fear of making a sound paralyzed me. Just as I began dialing 911, the tapping ceased and the shadowy figure outside retreated. When the police arrived this time, there was evidence. An intruder had left their mark. Fingerprints smeared on the window, footprints in the flower bed, and signs of forced entry. The malevolence that had been lurking outside had now found its way inside. Despite the police's assurances of increased patrols, the feeling of being watched never left us. When my boyfriend returned from his work assignment, he found me on the brink of insanity. We decided to take matters into our own hands, fortifying our home with additional security measures, reinforcing the windows, and setting up cameras throughout the house. One fateful night, we received a notification of our security app, and then we saw it. We stumbled upon a chilling truth. A real weird-looking man, twisted with malevolence, moving silently through our living room. His eyes, filled with madness, bore into the camera, and then the feed abruptly cut out. My husband and I exchanged terrified glances, our faces reflecting the same question. How the fuck did this man enter our home unnoticed? The sheer madness in his eyes sent a cold shiver down my spine, and I whispered to my husband that he should stay in the bedroom. We dared not to make a sound, and the eerie thing was that we hadn't heard any footsteps this whole time. It was as if he was hiding somewhere, waiting to jump on us. With trembling hands, we dialed 911, urgently calling for help. The police arrived promptly. They stormed inside, searched the whole house, but didn't find the madman. We presented them with the horrifying evidence. This time, they took it seriously, launching a full-scale investigation into the intruder's identity and motives. Their discoveries sent shivers down our spines. As it turned out, this man had a dark history of violent crimes, committed a murder in the past, and was for some reason fixated on our home. Was a disturbing revelation. In the end, with the police's help, we apprehended the man who had haunted us. He was taken away, and we moved far from that accursed place, hoping to escape the malevolent forces that had tormented us. I'm a 36-year-old guy, living in a ground-floor flat in a quiet seaside town in England with my girlfriend. The eerie incident I'm about to share happened on a Saturday night when I was all alone, and it still gives me chills. It was around 10:30 p.m., and I was in the middle of watching some YouTube videos, contemplating playing a game on my laptop. I had no inkling that the night would take such a terrifying turn. You see, my girlfriend had gone out with a couple of friends she hadn't seen in ages, and I decided to stay up late, waiting for her to return safely. Little did I know that safety would soon become a distant memory. As I was engrossed in my online entertainment, an unusual sound pierced the silence. The handle of my front door started rattling as if someone was hell-bent on barging in. Panic coursed through me. My girlfriend wasn't due back until closer to midnight, and unexpected late-night disturbances were far from ordinary. Curiosity mingled with fear, compelling me to investigate. I tiptoed toward the door, and as I neared it, the rattling inexplicably ceased. My heart raced as I peered through the peephole, and what I saw sent shivers down my spine. A man stood there, his back to me, hunched over as if lost in despair. The dimly lit hallway added an eerie aura to the already unsettling scene. I was torn between confronting this intruder and seeking safety. Convinced it could be a simple mix-up or some intoxicated soul who had lost his way, I retreated without revealing my presence. I hoped the stranger would realize his mistake and leave me in peace. However, About 30 minutes later, the same unsettling rattling noise echoed through the door once more. My nerves were stretched to the limit, and I sprang to my feet, determined to face this relentless intruder head-on. I flung the door open, ready to demand answers, but the man's bewildered expression and his sudden step backward as he saw me sent chills down my spine. My voice quivered with a blend of fear and anger as I sternly warned him, "I don't know who you are, but I caught you trying to open my door earlier. If you don't beat it right now, I'm dialing the police." He appeared to be a complete stranger, and his tired, hollow eyes and solemn demeanor only intensified my unease. He retreated towards the entrance of our apartment building, vanishing into the shadows, his head buried in his hands. My heart raced as I re-entered my flat, urgently advising him, "Just go home, man," before slamming the door shut behind me. Now I was torn about whether to involve the authorities, so I shot a text to my girlfriend, explaining the unnerving situation and urging her to give me a call when she was ready to come home. I wanted to ensure she wouldn't encounter the mysterious man lurking outside. As I anxiously awaited her call, I kept a watchful eye on the empty apartment entryway and stairwell. The night remained eerily quiet, and I didn't spot the stranger when it was time to pick up my girlfriend and her friends. When we got back home, my girlfriend speculated that he might have been a lost soul, perhaps a bit too tipsy, searching for a friend's residence. Though her theory made sense, a lingering unease lingered in the back of my mind. I couldn't determine if the man had any connections in our building or if his intentions were more sinister. All I could do was hope he would stay away. I felt a profound sense of relief that we had always kept our front door locked and bolted that night, preventing who knows what kind of chilling encounter. The following day, I engaged in a conversation with some neighbors, hoping to uncover more about this mysterious intruder. It turned out that a few of them had spotted the man lurking around before, behaving strangely and making everyone uneasy. None of them had a clue about his intentions or what he was truly up to. In response to the unsettling experience, we decided to fortify the security around our flat. We installed sturdier locks and double-checked all the windows to ensure our safety. My girlfriend and I remained vigilant, watching for any signs of the enigmatic man, but he never reappeared. The memory of that spine-tingling night still lingers, leaving us to ponder if we will ever uncover the truth about the man who invaded our tranquility that fateful evening.